This castle once stood high above Washington, D.C. Its interior is full of mysteries, secret passageways, and strange rituals. But what happened to it? Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. Mary Newton Foote was born in 1842 in Seneca Falls, New York, into a household where reform and curiosity were everyday conversation. Her mother, Eunice, experimented with gases and cylinders and spoke publicly for women's rights. Her father, Judge Elisha Foote, filled a parlor with legal talk and scientific gadgets. Surrounded by big ideas, Mary grew up certain that a single determined person could bend the world a little closer to their vision. That confidence carried her to Washington in the 1860s when she visited the Senate gallery for what she thought would be a fleeting glimpse of real-life lawmakers. Instead, she caught the attention of Missouri Senator John Brooks Henderson, a Union veteran already famous for co-authoring the 13th Amendment. Their courtship was quick, their marriage in 1868 even quicker, and soon, Mary found herself at the center of a new orbit, one that mixed politics, money, and the promise of national influence. The Hendersons' fortunes swelled after John's Senate term ended. Wartime bonds, railroad shares, and Western land deals turned the couple into multimillionaires, and Mary discovered she enjoyed managing capital as much as hosting soirees. By the mid-1880s, they were eager to return to Washington and make a statement that would outshine any Georgetown townhouse. Mary's imagination, equal parts romantic novel and business plan, settled on a single, audacious idea. She would build a castle. She chose Meridian Hill, a windswept ridge just beyond the city's northern line, where fields and scattered shanties still clung to pastures. Over several months in 1888, she quietly bought 6 contiguous acres just above Boundary Street, hence the mansion's formal name, Boundary Castle. Red Seneca sandstone, the same iron-rich rock used for the Smithsonian Castle, began arriving by railcar and wagon. Workers stacked it into 4-story walls punctuated by cylindrical and square towers, and arched porte-cochere and tooth-shaped battlements that gave the place a decidedly medieval silhouette. The cost, roughly $100,000 all told, would equal many millions today, but neither Henderson blinked. Mary lavished the same theatrical flair on the interiors. Visitors stepping through the front doors found a Moorish entry hall painted green and cream, with Arabic calligraphy banded around the ceiling. To the right was a drawing room bathed in buttercup yellow, its onyx fireplace reflected in gilded mirrors, and to the left, a rose-colored parlor equally plush. Connecting them lay a 100-foot picture gallery whose domed ceiling could disappear behind drapery for a night of dancing. Washington society needed little prompting to gossip about the new fortress. Reporters dubbed Mary the Empress of 16th Street, half admiring, half scandalizing by her vegetarian and temperance ideals. When she hosted the delegates of the First International American Conference in 1890, dignitaries who expected beef fillet and champagne found themselves sipping unfermented grape juice and carving into vegetarian substitute meats. Yet they returned, drawn by the novelty of the hostess as much as by the exotic decor. Industrialist Andrew Carnegie became a regular caller. Theodore Roosevelt paid social calls before and during his presidency. Everyone wanted to see the castle on the hill and experience her eccentric way of life. Mary treated her castle as headquarters for a much larger campaign, refashioning Meridian Hill into the grand approach she believed the capital deserved. She and John snapped up more than 300 nearby lots and hired architect George Oakley Totten Jr. to design a string of palatial residences that she marketed to foreign legations. Spain, France, Mexico, and several Latin American republics soon planted their flags along 16th Street, giving the boulevard a cosmopolitan sheen. Mary lobbied Congress to rename it the Avenue of the Presidents and even championed schemes to relocate the White House itself to her ridge, arguing that the executive mansion deserved a setting majestic enough for a modern republic. The proposals fizzled, but the sheer audacity of the effort cemented her legend. Her most flamboyant moment came on a bright May afternoon in 1908. The castle's cellar still held 1,000 bottles of vintage liquor, a relic from an earlier, less rigid chapter of the Henderson marriage. Unable to reconcile that stash with her crusade against alcohol, Mary summoned the Independent Order of Rechabites, a temperance fraternity in red, white, and blue sashes. They filed through the Moorish hall singing hymns, carted the bottles outside, smashed every cork, and poured decades-old port and cognac straight into the gutter. Onlookers gasped while Mary declared it immoral even to sell poison for profit. The newspaper columns that followed ranged from admiration to outright mockery, but nobody doubted her resolve. John Brooks Henderson passed away in 1913, leaving Mary a widow at 71 with an empire of stones, stocks, and real estate to manage. She pressed on, lobbying for suffrage and city beautification, but the world was changing faster than any one woman, castle or not, could control. After her passing in 1931, estate sales liquidated her art and furniture for fractions of their Gilded Age value. Developers and buyers eyed the bulky mansion with skepticism, heating bills alone scared them off. By 1937, the empty house had morphed into Castle H Swim and Tennis Club, complete with a dance hall and late-night revelry that infuriated nearby magnates. Washington Post publisher Eugene Meyer finally purchased the property simply to restore neighborhood peace. The reprieve was brief. In January 1949, demolition permits were issued, and Washington residents queued for one last look inside the stripped-out halls. Some pocketed fireplace tiles, others dug up clumps of bamboo from Mary's overgrown garden, a few even chiseled chips of sandstone as souvenirs. Wreckers followed close behind, and within weeks, the tower that once lorded over the avenue lay in ragged heaps. Only the gatepost and sections of perimeter wall proved too stubborn to level, standing watch over a bare, grassy plateau. For nearly 3 decades, the lot sat vacant, its ownership passing through heirs and stalled plans. Not until 1975 did the land at last change hands for good. Catherine Graham, Meyer's daughter, sold it to developers who constructed Beekman Place, a gated community of tidy townhouses finished in brick and stucco, modest heirs to a vanished dynasty of stone. Today, anyone strolling along Florida Avenue can still touch the weathered gatepost and trace the crenellated capstones that once enclosed Mary Foote Henderson's domain. And though the castle itself exists now only in sepia postcards and a handful of salvaged photos, its story endures as proof that new ideas can gain an audience with the old guard with the right balance of curiosity and grace. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. What are your thoughts on Washington D.C.'s Lost Castle? Let me know down below in the comments section. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.